Hey everyone. I'm assuming there's some people here. This is our first LinkedIn Live event of 2025. Welcome to another Automation Ladies LinkedIn Live. Although I should say another. Some of you may be new. I've been making some new connections lately. I know I invited some new people to this. So if you're new to my network and to Automation Ladies, welcome. We are a podcast and a number of other things because the hosts of Automation Ladies are way too curious and we like to do way too many things. And so we can't help ourselves. And this is one of those things, the live demo episodes of Automation Ladies. If you haven't listened to the podcast, we have a podcast on all the major podcast platforms. We've been doing it for close to 3 years now. And we'll be launching our first podcast episode of the audio kind April 3rd. So in a couple of weeks here. But And the podcast is, we have conversations with people in the industrial automation industry of all kinds. Really, we like to hear their stories. We like to hear how they came into the industry, what they're doing, what they love about it, what got them into the thing that they're doing now. Because a lot of the career paths of people we find ourselves meeting in this industry, including our own, have been very nonlinear. And I think a lot of us grew up having no idea that controls engineering or industrial automation was even a career option. And then the stories of how we get into it are pretty crazy. And that's kind of the premise of the Automation Ladies audio podcast, is talking with different people of different walks of life in the industry. But we are very interested in also the technology that's out there in the industry. And I know a lot of us, we have very, very, very busy jobs. And so we've got a lot of things if we're keeping plants running or, doing implementations, whatever part of the industry you work in, you probably don't have a ton of extra time to be checking out new demos, new technologies, taking the sales call of every salesperson that wants to call on you and show you the latest and greatest. And then, when we started this show, we also didn't work in positions necessarily where these salespeople were knocking on our door wanting to show us something. And everybody has, we have to protect our time. And so we thought live demos, what a great way for us to be able to see technology that we want to see, even if we're not a qualified prospect, for that salesperson to spend time with us one-on-one. And then I think there's also an appetite for people, at least from, my experience and a lot of our friends, is we just want to be able to see the stuff when we want to. We want to be able to get a demo without having to qualify ourselves as this prospect or know that we have a project underway or that we have budget. It helps us know what's out there, what's cool, and what may be a good fit for us when we have a new application come down the road or something like that. So with that said, that is the purpose of these live demos. It's meant to be a very informal, we talk to the people and then we look at the stuff, whatever that is. And we did a few software demos over the last couple of years. I think we're going to be doing quite a bit more of demos this year. Software obviously lends itself nicely to these types of online demos. So we are not going to be showing any hardware today, but we may do another demo if we put something together with some hardware, that some kind of stuff. But today we're going to go over Weintek's Easybuilder Pro, which is the amazing and free HMI development software from Weintek USA. And it does come with, you can download it for free whether or not you own a Weintek HMI, which is really cool. And one of the reasons why I thought this would be a great way to kick off live demos for this year, because anybody that watches this that's interested can go download the software for free from our support forum at weintechusa.com. And so I think that's really cool because a lot of the products and technology in our industry is very gated. You have to, buy licenses. You have to have a demo that's been approved for you or, something like that. So Easybuilder Pro is one of those free tools in the industry that's available, whether you've, bought an HMI or not. And Brendan is the perfect person to show it to us because he's one of our apps engineers. And he's putting together a demo for us at Automate with a robot. And so you can actually come find us if you are going to Automate this year. I don't remember our booth number off the top of my head, but I know I made a post about it earlier today. So ask us in the comments. We'll let you know what booth number. But to be fair, I don't know. When I go to shows, I just search for the name of the company in the directory. I don't actually remember these booth numbers, even though people tell them ahead of time, oh, come find us at booth number XYZ. Like, I'm not going to remember that. So I think you might remember to come see me or Brendan or Keith because you're meeting us here today. You can come check us out at Automate, see the hardware in person, see it doing some cool stuff with the UR robot. And we're also right next to one of our partners, Arduino, which is going to have some cool stuff, including a demo with our HMI and their PLC. And then I think we're also just right down next to our friends at Gray AES, or what used to be called Gray Solutions. So I think it'll be a fun place to visit at Automate. We won't be like the only ones in a weird part of the hall where you won't have somebody else to see. So with that, I've talked a lot, but it's the first episode of the year, so I can't help myself. Also, if you don't know, I'm sure you've seen, but I started a new job this year with Weintek, so I am in business development. These are my colleagues that we're talking to today. And one of the reasons why I chose to join this company is because of how great these colleagues are and the fact that they're willing to do stuff like this and the fact that our hardware is amazing and our software is free and we have tons and tons of educational material on YouTube. And I really appreciate the way that they're going about doing business in this industry. I also talked to a lot of my friends and community members ahead of time, and I've only heard good things about both the people and the products coming from Weintek. So that's, a little bit about what I've changed. And then Allie is in the process of moving. So she will become my across the street neighbor starting next week. So she's in the middle of that. So she may or may not be able to join us today. But as you guys know, if you've listened to the show, we care a lot about who we spend time with, and that, I wouldn't choose to work for a company that I didn't really believe in. So you've got kind of my stamp of approval, but I have also only been around for a little over 2 months. I don't know the ins and outs of the software. I don't know the ins and outs of all the product yet, as much as I would love to. So I brought the two people that I thought would be able to answer your questions the best. So with that, please go ahead and say hi to us in the comments if we're here. Oh, we got people. Hey, Ben, nice to see you. Appreciate you being here. Patrick Bunn, also. Howdy, Patrick. I shared your joke with the guys earlier before we went live. Yasin, I hope I got that right. Thanks for joining us. Everybody, if you're out there watching, I always love to hear like where people are joining us from, because that's pretty cool. We've got people from all over the world and, different parts of the US. So please say hi in the comments, and we'll have some people here as well ready to like maybe answer some questions or give you guys some links if you want reference material that we're not going to have a chance to go over. But with that, I've been talking for 8 minutes straight. Oh, hey, Greg. We got Greg McIntyre, the camera guy here. He is in Southern California. One of the first systems integrators I ever in my career, machine vision and robotics integration expert. You should know him if you don't already. And I'm going to give a shout out to Courtney is not joining us because she's currently at a Trans Automation Technologies open house down in Tustin, California. They're a FANUC integrator. And she actually ran into some Weintek HMIs there. So I was like, okay, I can't be too mad that you're not on our live demo. Oh, hey, Mark, we got Mark the Robot Man. Perfect addition here as we talk about robots and integration in Charlotte. Okay, so not too far from Keith over there. Oh, we got Ben Black in Atlanta. All right, well, Ben will be in your neck of the woods for the AHTD spring meeting next week. So thanks, guys. Now I'm going to finally kick it off to somebody else to talk. I would like to introduce Keith Moyer, our VP of Sales at Weintek USA, who has we have great communication between the two of us, including Keith telling me that I talk way too much, and I appreciate it. Hello.
Sometimes, not always.
Yes. Introduce yourself to our community if they don't know you already.
Hey, well, first of all, thanks for having me on and having Brendan on and to talk about Weintek and our software. It's exciting. Honestly, I think this is my first podcast. I don't think I've ever been on one before. So I don't know if I get a little blue ribbon or a button or something.
Yeah, I need to send you like a cherry or something.
Yeah. My 15-year-old was impressed when I said I was going to be on a podcast today. So
nice.
He was very curious about what I was doing. So. But yeah, no, I've been with Weintek for a number of years now, and I love it. We have an amazing product. We have an amazing team with a great new addition, Nikki. And, I think if I was going to boil down what sets us apart is our focus, right? So I've been in the automation world for a really long time. And I started growing gray at 26. So that might be the automation world thing, or, being in that automation world. But so, but I've been doing this a really long time. And I think one of the things I really appreciate is our focus, right? So we are focused on HMIs with the ability to add codices, right? And remote IO. That's all we do, right? I don't do, we don't do drives. We don't do motor control. We don't do soft starts. I don't do terminal blocks or duct or cable glands or, you name it. I don't do any of those things. We don't have a catalog that's 4 inches thick with 400 pages. And so it allows us to be really, really focused and by virtue of being really, really good at what we do. So that makes it a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun to be out here helping customers realize the value that we can bring to them, not only monetarily, but also in time and effort and in capabilities. So that's ultimately our goal, right? Is to help engineers break away from these kind of monopolized systems. So yeah, that's what we do.
Love that. Thank you, Keith. Yeah, that's one of the things that impressed me about you guys as well. And honestly, for me, having come, so if you guys know my history, I used to work at Festo, for instance, which at that time, we had a CD for a catalog because there's no way that we could print it. And then of course, and it's drives and things. So of course you have a bigger, you have configurable products. There's going to be a giant catalog. But as a sales engineer, it was really hard for me to wrap my head around all of the different lines and all of the different options. And it took a longer ramp up time for me to become a really good resource to my customers. And so, of course, I had great applications engineers and things like that. But to me, the simplicity of the catalog that you guys have was a big selling point to me because I already have a lot of things going on up in here. And it's really nice just to be able to not have to kind of, open up and have everything under the sun be your thing, because then obviously you can't be an expert in all the things. Right. And another thing, I guess, that really surprised me because I just didn't know is how competitively priced Weintek HMIs are, like incredibly. And I think a lot of people don't know that, and they look at the product line. And I was visiting with one of our partners, Azerel, up in Minnesota the other day, and Matt Hunt, the general manager, was like, yeah, I used to show people this and they would think that, oh, that's going to be too pricey for me. I'm going to, I'm not even going to look at that. That's got to be the top of the line Cadillac, thing. And I'm an OEM. I need budget. And then he's like, but then I would tell people the price and it just would blow them away. Right. So yeah, but it's really, when you think about how is it even possible to have such a great product, but also be so competitive in price? It's that focus, like you just said. We don't make tens of thousands of different products and make a small quantity of each of them. We make a really big quantity of a few products and do it really well.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's a little bit for the joke, I guess, but it's kind of the Ginsu knives moment, right? But wait, there's more, right? You show the product and you show the product and people can't believe it and say, well, what would you pay? I mean, but it's, they're always pleasantly surprised, I guess, is what I would say.
All right. Well, Brendan, can you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about what you do and maybe, what it is about Weintek that brought you over to the team?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. Just like Keith said, thank you, Nikki, for having us on here. So I'm an engineer for Weintek. I've been doing basically application support, supporting people like Keith and some of our other sales guys on for a couple of years now. And I honestly, I really love what I do here. I get to work on a lot of cool applications and see a lot of cool HMI designs and use cases that I never really would have thought about for interfaces. So it's a very, very interesting job. And just like I just want to kind of elaborate too, not on so much that. So I mean, we have HMIs, which is our focus, and we have a 30-minute block here roughly that I'm going to go over and do a demo today. I just want to set expectations.
Yeah.
You can't cover everything that's in our software within 30 minutes. It's really it's impossible. I haven't even tried it because I know it's impossible. There's just way too much. a lot of people think, oh, free software must not be good, right? So there's definitely a stigma there. I don't know, probably a lot of people are aware that most of the most popular software used, not in our industry, but outside in the software industry. So if you're talking about maybe making a commercial application for Windows or something, it's very common to see free applications. So there's like PyCharm, which is definitely the most popular IDE for Python. VS Code, which is used for a lot of different applications. Xcode is used to make all the iPhone applications. So everything you use on your iPhone, that's free software.
Okay.
Android Studio, that's basically the default best Android development software you can use for Android applications, and that's also free. So there's a lot of good free software out there, and it's also just ranks among the most popular. So when I came to Weintek and I saw that our software was free, I didn't actually think like that's not a weird thing to me, because it makes sense to have free software. If you have a product that you want people to use, you should provide the utility to actually be able to use it.
Right?
And it should go along with the software. So it just makes sense. So it's a very weird thing for me coming in and learning like, oh, there's people out there that charge for it. So it was a reverse for me. I know that a lot of people come in and they expect to pay for it because that's what they've been doing. But then for me, it was just the complete opposite.
Yeah. And I know you're not on the sales side of things, but it's funny to me to have to try hard to sell something that's free.
That's a good way.
But that was also, an eye opener for me when I went into procurement, that it's actually not that easy to buy things either. Like it's, and everybody colors what they think of something by their own experience. So depending on how they've used it, where they've bought it from, how, what they've had to pay. Right. But I would say a lot of younger people, especially coming in outside from, they haven't been in the industry as controls engineers for, a long period of time. They have a lot more experience with a lot of other, I would say, software development type tools. Right. And I think that's becoming more and more common. And I know there's communities of engineers too in our industrial automation space that are kind of championing more modern software development. There's a Slack community called SASE, the software engineer Society of Automation Software Engineers, if I'm getting that right. But there's kind of I think a growing trend among the younger crowd to want to use more modern tools, more open architectures and things like that. They don't see it inherently as a risk or cheap, like people that have kind of come from the other side of the industry as much. So anyway, that's a lot of what I loved about the company. And I think interoperability and the ability to not be locked in by hardware vendors is something that during COVID I saw very firsthand, trying to help people source components during the shortage. If you guys followed me back then, what was going on. And that's actually when I ended up talking to Keith the first time, because I ran across him on LinkedIn and I had a client looking for an HMI or somebody that was like looking for help from Copium. And I just called Keith and he's like, yeah, we have it in stock in Seattle. We can ship it today. And that was during that time, like I was literally getting lead times back for things that were 52 weeks, or like we can't even quote a lead time because it's so long. And so that just blew my mind, first of all. And then when more recently, as I joined Weintek and Keith kind of went over some of his sales, presentation and stuff, he mentioned that during COVID, our worst lead time was 5 weeks. And to me, like, I know how much that means and how painful that was. And so, yeah, it's just,
and I'll point out that even that was short lived. That was a very short period where we stretched out to 5 weeks and it was back to.
Yeah.
I think that was only limited to a select few products.
And it was a few select part numbers. Yeah. It was not across the board by any stretch. Yeah.
But I think that's also a testament to the fact that you guys, or we, right? We are a manufacturer and we're selling products that we manufacture. We design them, we manufacture them. So we can change the designs or source another chip or whatever needs to happen. And we are the first in line to get our own product because we make it. But when a lot of HMIs that are part of bigger product lines that are sold, they're selling everything, right? Or lots of other things where their focus isn't the HMI. They're white labeling or getting that HMI from a contract manufacturer. And then whenever there are any issues, they're not first in line to even get the product if the product exists. But secondly, they have no influence over the supply chain, right? And I think that's something that's really important. And I wouldn't have thought to think of that as a selling point until I lived through it, right? And as we, everybody's experience, we learn and we start to get these points of comparison and, things that we know to ask, which is why I'm really excited about people taking a gander at Easybuilder Pro today. Give us your thoughts, your questions. We may not get to them all. We may not, especially if it's a complicated technical question, we probably won't address it on air, but we can definitely get you an answer. But I'd love to hear people's thoughts. And, sometimes it's also not about getting the full picture, but getting enough to know when you would be interested in or want to check out downloading it yourself and seeing what it can do, because it is extremely powerful. And there's a video linked in my profile on LinkedIn from our YouTube. I think, Brendan, you did that where you were integrating some AI, like calling Gemini or something from the HMI. There's tons of cool stuff, some of which may or may not be like production grade stuff that people are already wanting to do, but there is the ability to develop what you want, right, is important, because there are people out there, like you said, Brendan, that have all kinds of ideas and use cases that we can't even think of because we don't have that lens. So the other thing I will say that I think is a huge selling point of Easybuilder Pro and the HMIs is the huge amount of drivers that we have. So we have over 425 different drivers for any PLC or field device that you could think of connecting to an HMI on a machine. And if you find that we don't have a driver for it, we will still have a way to communicate with it. And we've added, I don't know, I would say what Keith, you said you had to update your presentation recently, because I think the latest iteration was maybe saying 300 and now we're up to 400 something.
So when I started, a little over 6 years ago, we had 325. I would say we had a little over 325 different drivers, and now we have over 425 different drivers. So that shows you where development lives, and that we're continually developing, we're continually adding more flexibility, more features, more communication capabilities. We don't just kind of rest on our laurels and try to be just the low cost guy. I think the bang for the buck thing is pretty amazing, and I don't know that anybody can touch us on it, to be honest with you.
Right.
I don't think they can. No, I've talked to a couple of companies at trade shows, and I don't want to mention names, but I did talk to, the last time I was at AHCD, who I talked to, Keith, and they had mentioned, they're like, oh man, but you guys, drivers, he's like, I'm trying to push my dev team to get more drivers in, and it was like, we'll mop the floor with them, unfortunately. Fortunately for them, so.
Yeah. Which I think is also like, we want to be great partners to everyone that doesn't focus on developing HMIs, right? Friendly competitors to anybody that's doing that, of course. We want better development. We want better products in the market. Good competition pushes all of us to do better for the customer, right? But to be honest, like, there really aren't that many players in the market that do just what we do, right? So we are we putting all of our eggs in that basket. We're putting all of our R&D in it. And with this software being free, it's amazing how quickly we're continuing to develop it and make it better, right? So it's not, like you said, it's not a static thing. We're not, it's something that we made years ago, and because we're not charging for it, we're not going to keep developing it. So I know we'll have some cool announcements too later this year, but I'm not going to get into any of that. But you will see more really cool new stuff coming from us throughout the year. But with that, I think we've kind of covered Keith, do you want to give any more, I guess, maybe just a quick overview of some of the other products that we're not going to go into today, but that we have available? We have Remote IO. We've got headless HMIs, which are basically, you use this software and you have an appliance, but it's inside the cabinet, and then you can connect whatever display to it that you need. Is there anything else I missed?
No, I think you covered. I think one of the things, without going into too length, because I know that's not why we're here, is I really do think we have a kind of building block setup system that's very flexible for automation engineers to kind of put together for different systems, right? So whether that's an HMI, you mentioned all those drivers, right? So whether it's just the HMI and communicate with your PLC of choice, right? Whoever that happens to be. Whether it's just remote IO, right? The remote IO can stand on its own. If you've got somebody that's dead set to use the HMI and PLC that they're currently using. And then with the ability to add code assist to our HMIs to handle that PLC functionality, you have the ability to kind of put together a hybrid that is an HMI with PLC with the remote IO. And so I think it gives a lot of flexibility in design, and all those parts and pieces fit together very nicely. So
yeah. And then I'll throw in one last plug for our Easy Access 2.0, which you can also add remote access capability, secure remote access to the HMI, and you can pass it through to the PLC and other things. So again, it's not our focus product. It's an add-on to the HMI, but you don't have to add a separate appliance to the cabinet. And it really makes that HMI a huge value driver for the machine, because you can also continue to expand without adding extra hardware, the functionalities and the capabilities that it delivers with all those drivers as well.
Yeah, it's one of our most popular features, I guess, or add-ons. Very inexpensive. Basically turns your HMI into a VPN gateway, allowing, again, like you said, secure access not only to the HMI, but to the machine network behind it. So need to get to your PLC and do a program change remotely? Yes. You need to get to your drives and do parameter changes? Yes. All those kind of things, whether that's through the Ethernet port or through the serial port, right, to do serial pass-through. So it's a very powerful tool, and it attracts a lot of people to us. A lot of times when I get inquiries, that's the very, very first thing. So
shout out to Vinny over here,
hey, Vinny.
which he was a big he told me, he was like, oh, if you join, that would be really cool if you join Weintek. He's like, I really like their stuff. So he was probably my first kind of person that told me that he really recommended this company from a customer standpoint. So he's one of our speakers at OT SCADACon as well. We've got Kyle here looking to become an integrator for us. Sweet. Yeah. Check it out. Check out Easybuilder. We were happy to talk to anybody about different ways that we can partner. But the cool thing is you can start developing on Easybuilder Pro for free yourself without anything, and then reach out to me for sure. We can get you more resources or talk about how we can work together. But we're really not a gated community here. So absolutely, let's talk about that. So I think with that, Brendan, let's go ahead and get started on the demo.
Yeah, absolutely. So let me go ahead and share my screen, and I'll just double check, make sure you guys can see it. All right. You guys see my screen?
Yes. So let me add it here. There we go.
Let's go ahead and boot up. So I'm just going to start up Easybuilder Pro just so I always like to go over and just kind of show what it looks like when you open it up. Although we do have, a very focused product line, we still have a lot of different models because we have one software that works across all of the devices that we support and all the devices that we make, aside from our IO, that's separate. But if you're talking about our HMIs, or even I think as Keith and Nikki mentioned, our gateways, or our headless units, I should say, which are headless HMIs, I guess, or our gateways, they're all programmed here with an Easybuilder Pro. So you'll see the screen when you open up our software. Here we can kind of select a new model, or select a model we'd like to program, I should say. So I'll select, I guess I have a 2078X in the back.
And I'm going to interrupt a little. I saw a post earlier today on LinkedIn where somebody was looking for an Ethernet to a Modbus gateway in the $300 range. We have that. That's one of those things that was on the list, the CMT 01. It's $325. So if you can spare the extra 25, and our gateways basically have that same library of drivers. So you can do, bridge communications between as many devices as you can fit into the HMI. If you're using the HMI, you can also use it for protocol conversion, or we have the standalone gateways as well. Sorry about that, Brendan.
No, you're fine. Actually, I hate to go off on tangents, so when that comes up, it's like, almost any one of our products can be used as a protocol gateway.
Yeah.
One of our HMIs, anything. It's because we support all those drivers that we had mentioned before. And on that driver note, let me show you how to add a driver to your project, because that's kind of the fundamental feature. So after you select a new HMI model in Easybuilder Pro, you'll get to this screen. It's called the system parameters. You ever lose track of it, you can always find it right over here, up in the right below home. And so here we'll click on this new device / server button. And when I do demos, I always go over, this is the most popular PLC that I see out there, the Compact Logics. I see it all the time in every application. So I'm going to use that as an example in today's demo. When we open our new device / server menu, we'll pick a new device type. Now, we support so many drivers. There's a couple different ways to search for a driver. You can click the middle here, which I highly recommend, but if you click this arrow, you'll see a giant scrolling list of like every driver we offer. We have a lot of drivers, so you may want to search. So just click in the center. And here I'll just search for Rockwell. And we'll select our Compact Logics free tag names driver. And here, oops, sorry, I want the Ethernet version. That's a serial. Oops, there we go. So here we'll click the settings. We'll set our IP. The port, this is the default port for Ethernet IP, so we don't have to change it. Our developers are pretty good about adding the default port for every single driver, so this like rarely has to be changed, once in a blue moon. We'll click OK, add our driver in, and then now you would go through the process of importing the tags from your PLC project. So although it's not an actual tag file, the way we do that for specifically the Compact Logics, of course, it varies per device and per driver. Siemens is not going to have the same file extensions as Rockwell, but when we import tags from, for example, a Compact Logics, we're going to actually import it via the L5X file. So you'd go File, Save As in Studio 5000 and save that as an L5X. And the reason why is because this will bring in all of your UDTs, your I/O in various slots. See here, tag files for testing, and I always keep a couple little files here. And this is just a generic tag file that I have just to go through the process. I'll just select all. You can be kind of picky if you want to exclude certain things, but I'm just going to select all. We'll keep it like that. Click OK. And so now we're actually ready to kind of develop and start adding objects to our project. So the whole process from start to finish right there, super simple. But I do want to mention it is pretty important that when we're working with a new device, check out some of our documentation and our resources. We have a lot on our forum. And specifically, when we're working with a new driver, I do recommend you go to PLC support here in our forum and just find the driver documentation for whatever device you happen to be working with. If you're working with this Rockwell Ethernet IP Compact Logics free tag names driver, which I just selected, we'll just open up the PDF for that driver. And you just want to read through and make sure you understand if there's any limitations. Like here, can tag descriptions be imported? Yes, with an L5X, yes, with a CSV. Do you need to add, adding data? There's a typo here, but there's this is discussing a legacy method of adding individual data types when you don't have the UDTs. I guess the correct way would say, are UDTs supported, which would be a yes here. Okay. But it just provides a lot of information. And sometimes, like if you're working, for example, if you're working with like an Omron NX, you'll have to maybe enable some specific settings in the NX or in the Sysmax Studio to make sure that the HMI or external devices can actually reach and grab that data from the PLC. So there's always a lot of good information in here. Highly recommend to review the PLC connection guides. Again, you can just find that in the PLC support section on our forum. Now kind of moving on, I'll just show really quickly just some creation of some objects. So you'll kind of notice the structure of Easybuilder Pro. we have almost like a Microsoft Word style layout where everything's kind of grouped together in these specific sections. It actually makes it really easy to find things. So if we wanted to create some objects, of course, we go to the Object tab. Some of the objects I like to focus on during demos are combo buttons, numeric objects, ASCIIs. Combo button's really a great tool because, so this is essentially a button you can create if you want to add functions to your project, but you're not sure all of the functions that you want to add to that button yet. So this, just as kind of a intro, this supports up to 20 actions in a single group. Those actions could be setting specific bits in a PLC on, setting specific word values, changing windows, executing specific JavaScript code. And then in those 20 actions in a single group, you can have up to 20 action groups. So, you can do the math there. There's a lot of flexibility in creating some sort of graphical based logic by using this, setting bits, using delays, and performing kind of very cool sequences with our combo button. So it adds a lot of flexibility. So I've talked about all that. What I'm really going to do is I'm just going to set a bit on just for fun. And so I'll set this internal memory bit on in our HMI. That's a whole nother story. So we have a lot of different memory types in Easybuilder Pro and in our HMIs in general. So LBs stand for local bits, but some of the common ones are LBs, LWs. You'll see me use LWs, which are local words, and RWs, which are retentive words. I may even get into those today. But we have a lot of different memory types in the HMI, and you can just use those just for general UI development. So if you want to save some parameters, maybe you're working with a device that doesn't have retained memory or doesn't have enough retained memory, you can use the retentive memory on the HMI to kind of hold those parameters and then reinitialize them after reboot. Those are some use cases I see for that. So most objects are going to have a general security shape and either a font or a label tab. So this is kind of a good object just to introduce that. You'll see very similar security settings across most objects, but this one definitely has a little bit more just because it's a little bit more to this button. And over here in the Shape tab, I would say is particularly important. I like to introduce the fact that we have so many graphic images. So to kind of meet your branding style or the style of the project that you're trying to create, maybe you just want to get a look and feel, or you want to create something that's intuitive for the operator, which you always do. You can go to the Shape tab here in pretty much any object that can be physically placed on the screen and access our picture library. So the picture library is just an extensive set of images. So here we can see just a couple in the System Button Ribbon tab, but we really have menus upon menus, buttons upon buttons, and different kinds of symbols. And some of these menus really expand outwards pretty far. So we have so many objects and graphical images in here that you can use within different UI objects that you place. And even if this is not enough, we have extended sets of libraries, browse libraries that are kind of hidden just to kind of, I guess, simplify it. But really, we have so many images here. We even have cool images of like motors, for example, that can be used to kind of indicate when things are on or off. So we have kind of GIFs running. So very cool kind of image styles. Yeah, exactly. It's very cool. And you wouldn't always see these because they're kind of hidden in these, stuff, the behind the scenes info. So this little secret tip there. You can find those in the Browse Library section. I'm not really going to use a motor image for this. Let's just create a very simple looking button here.
But on that note, I've been asked before, but we support full multimedia on the HMIs as well, right? So people can, like, if they want to play videos or they have their own animations, those are things that people can put on the screen too.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, we support images, videos, PDFs. Shoot, I mean, we can look at IP cameras. We can do a lot. We have web browser objects to view web servers on. So if you're working with like a code assist device. It has its own separate HMI. You can use our web browser, our PLC web browser object to view that. A lot of cool stuff, a lot of cool functionality there.
Yeah, I think I saw one of our customers, Hamrick Packaging Systems, in one of their demos at, I don't remember what was, Pack Expo or something, but they were running Olis robotics, which is like a camera system for monitoring robots when you're not around, remotely monitoring the robots and giving, like, I guess if you get an alert or something, like you can review the footage, kind of like you do with dash cams. Like if something happens, you now have the footage of what happened to try to do remote diagnostics. But it's cool because they were actually just also showing it on the HMI for the cell. Then you can access that remotely, and both through the HMI and in their own software. But that was an application that I hadn't seen before. And then I was just talking to somebody that wasn't really familiar with our HMIs at a panel shop the other day, and he was like, okay, I'm going to put this to the test now. The main thing I'm looking for is, do you have enough image libraries for me? Because I'm always disappointed, especially with free stuff, that it's going to be super limited in the images that are available. And I think again, he'll be pleasantly surprised going in here, but it's good to know that there's like extra images if you and things outside the main menus if you need more.
And not even to go into the fact that you can import images, right?
Okay, so you can use whatever images you want if you have your own brand stuff.
You start talking about, I've got a lot of customers that have, imported their own custom graphics. They scale really nicely and have done some really cool stuff. So.
And I think
that's
it's
part
like
of the fact because
there are, sorry, Brendan, I was just going to say that there are more and more companies in the space that are investing in cool branding and having everything on the machine look and feel like it's their thing. And to be able to do that with a traditional HMI versus having to, go into developing something else, I think is a really nice option. And I think more companies should think about doing that. Or like have a website. I was looking at Pack Expo exhibitors the other day, and some of them, they spent enough to be exhibiting at Pack Expo, but then they don't have a website to link to in the exhibitor directory, which blows my mind.
Bummer.
But that everybody does their own thing. But that being kind of the idea, like, right, you do your thing. Your company has a way that you want to do things. You have a way that you want your machine to look. And you shouldn't be stuck with just our library of things that we thought of that you might need. So that's really cool. We got, Kyle's saying, I like adding drawings for the equipment in PDF format. Yep. And then I've also been asked about, like, what about training videos for the operators and stuff like that? And I would say, yeah, you can have that on the HMI as well, right?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, just because of our multimedia support, it's definitely opens the door for a lot of different use cases. And yeah, certainly adding training videos is one of those. On that note too, I mean, importing images is good to note that we support SVGs. So
okay,
that would be the reason I would say they scale really nicely. I mean, we support a lot of different kind of image types, but SVGs among them, of course, are nice to have. So,
an SVG is a vector file, so it will always look crisp, no matter what size.
Exactly.
Right.
And most of these image objects here are SVGs in themselves. So, usually a lot of these will look pretty crisp. There may be some in there that are kind of on the older style, but we've had image libraries that we've just been building on for years. We may have some in there that are just a tad older, but people still use them. So, and that's okay. I mean, you can use whatever you'd like to design the project that you want. So,
right. And sometimes you just want to, like, if you're not upgrading, but you may be replacing a screen or, something like that. A lot of times in certain situations, people don't want to change it, right? Their operators used to what used to be there. They don't have a reason to want to upgrade or change the interface as much as they want to have it be familiar. And I've seen some of our HMIs, people have sent me pictures of ones that are from like 20 years ago. So obviously they didn't have such great graphics back then, but it's still up and running and it still works great. So it just looks like it was from 20 years ago for sure.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I do have that with definitely I've had a plethora of customers that want to keep the same look and feel just because that's what the operators are comfortable with.
Yeah.
I was going to say here, just on that note too, or just on a separate note, while I was going in here, and so this is our numeric object. So these are just really basic objects. Honestly, I came in here with like 0 programming background, and I kind of figured it out. So I think most people can get in here and kind of play around with the tabs and figure this out. But if you're in the general tab and you've added a driver like I showed earlier, you can use this little device drop-down list here to kind of select what object, what tag or device resource you want to access. And this is going to be, for this numeric object, would be our read and write address. So we would read data from this and write data to it, or we could use separate addresses. A lot of objects support separate read and write. So you'll read data from one address or memory instance in the PLC, or whatever type of device you're working with, and then write to a separate instance. So you can do either of those. And really, there's a lot of configuration options in the numeric object. I'm going to kind of skip over them just because they're covered extensively in a lot of different videos and resources. But I'm just kind of placing some objects here just so we can kind of see how they look like. And then I'm gonna move into the more important part, which Nikki said, yeah, hey, we have this free software you can download, you can start using. You can start using, not even in the sense that you can just start developing a project, but you can also see how it would look like if you did already have the HMI. So if you've opened Easybuilder Pro and you place a few objects, you can then go to the project tab, click on this, for example, this offline simulation button, or our simulation buttons, and create just a quick project. I'll just give this a very random name here so we can get something going. So it's going to save and then compile. And then after a couple seconds here, it'll boot up. And this would be kind of what you would see, again, if you have the actual HMI in front of you. It's very cool because you can kind of go around here and navigate to different screens, basically test out the look and feel of your project before you actually ever download it to the HMI. So you could kind of already begin development. Now, on that note too, so this is an offline simulation. Now, if my computer was actually connected to that Rockwell controller that I added in there, we could use this online simulation and actually pull or read and write real-time values to the PLC. And that online simulation feature works with a very good portion of our drivers. I don't know if I have a percentage, but I don't think I've really encountered very many drivers that, or maybe any drivers that hasn't worked with. So online simulation is a very good testing tool if you have the controller, you don't have the HMI, but you have your computer.
Very cool.
So
and then the CMT Viewer is an app that we have that is used not just for simulation, but also you can view your HMI if you have one in production. Keith, you want to give us a quick rundown of CMT Viewer?
Yeah, sure. Absolutely. I think a lot of our audience is probably familiar with the VNC connection, right? So if you want to connect with your phone, there's a lot of third-party VNC guys out there. And I think the easiest way to describe CMT Viewer is it's a VNC on steroids, is what it really is, because it's typical VNC is a mirrored connection, one-to-one, whereas CMT Viewer is a true multi-user independent viewing apparatus, right? So it allows multiple users to be connected simultaneously and independently. So the example I give is just so that you can grasp it is, screen, an operator can be standing in front of the screen on screen A. Somebody else could be on their iPhone on screen B. Somebody else could be on their Android tablet on screen C, with a simple Wi-Fi router in the mix. It all allows you to act independently without interrupting each other. So it's pretty powerful. It's free. It's included with all of our X Series HMIs and our screenless HMIs.
Thank you for that. I forgot. Yeah. I actually, when I was talking to somebody last week about this, he just immediately, when I mentioned this feature, was like, wow, that's huge. If I could have had that for these last 3 projects that I did, that would have been so cool.
I think from a practical standpoint, I do think there's the example I gave kind of on the floor, but where I've seen the feedback from our customers is, startups, commissioning, those kind of things, allows you to not have to be right in front of the HMI. I can be, bumping motors. I can be checking photo alignments or whatever, and not have to be right in front of the screen, but I can have that screen, in my hand, so to speak. So pretty powerful.
So I didn't even really think of it as in this use case, right, where you don't even have the HMI yet, but you can pretty much use VNC Viewer as your HMI to test things.
Well, it would just be this simulation right here. So offline simulation automatically opens up an instance of, just for example, if you're working with a CMT series, CMT Viewer, that's going to be that simulated instance. So I have over here just kind of like this real instance of this project that I have back there that should be connected to a controller, but I didn't connect it because I was going to download to it. And so this is a CMT Viewer connection. I don't have any other extra windows or anything fancy in here really, but I could. And then as Keith had mentioned, I could navigate to various different windows and do it separately. And yeah, I mean, do it separately from whatever the operator's seeing. So whatever I work on in this application is going to be different from what's shown on the HMI. So the HMI is shown here. So if I move to a different window in CMT Viewer, they wouldn't see that. However, if I did turn on like a button or entered a value in here, you would actually see that on the HMI and in CMT Viewer as well. So very cool tool.
Okay.
Again, I mean, we have a lot of cool features here. I really wish we had more time.
And sorry to keep interrupting you. I know you've got like
okay.
a plan of what you want to show, and we're taking you all over the place, but
that's all right. No, I think it just kind of goes where it goes.
Yeah. I mean, and by the way, those of you in the audience, if you have any comments or questions or anything that you'd like to see, let us know. We've got roughly about 10 minutes left. We may let it go over a few minutes if need be, but Ben says, who made your models? That's what I did for where I work.
Who made our models? Like model, like.
Yeah, what do you mean, Ben, by models? You mean the
I'm guessing
graphics?
He means the graphics, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a good question. I'm sure we have a whole dev team just for graphics.
Yeah,
like we
probably.
We do just for drivers. I know that we have a driver team, so I don't get to really interact with all of the different R&D teams there, but I know that we have separate divisions for those. I'd imagine that there's a whole division just for graphics, and especially in channeling those into newer versions of our software that may be released in the future that are in current development. They have to make sure that those are compatible with those new versions. So
yeah. And look who's joined us on the other side, Allie. Hey, Allie. How do you do alarms? I know that is one thing that we did plan to cover. So
yeah, I did have that in here actually. That's a great question. So everything here is pretty easy. So if you go to the data/history tab, you'll see we have an event alarm log, data sampling, a bunch of different feature sets here. But all that for alarms is going to be an event alarm log. So we'll go in here. We'll create a new alarm. So this will be something that will maybe display in an alarm view object. We can reference whatever tag or register value from our device. So let's say that seems appropriate. Let's say if this is greater than, 32, then an alarm will be triggered. And what is the alarm going to say? Well, the alarm is going to say something defined within the message tab. So I think they try to keep things pretty easy here. So like a legitimate alarm there. And we'll go ahead and just click OK. That'll add our alarm instance. And of course, you can keep adding additional alarms. You can even copy and then kind of do a paste add and then just do slight modifications to some existing alarms. Sometimes that's kind of preferable rather than adding each new alarm instance. We also allow exporting to Excel for editing outside of Easybuilder Pro. Actually, a lot of our features do that. And then if you want to display that alarm, we'll go ahead and open maybe an alarm display, I guess would be an appropriate object to use. And here, we don't really have to change anything. Maybe I'll disable this caption option, but everything here is just going to kind of work already. We can kind of simulate it and then just see how we feel about it. So I have this alarm and it should be reading from this value here. So if I just go ahead and go to our simulation, which we are actually already have one running, but this is actually our real viewer. you don't have yet one running. But so when I enter a value in there and it's past our alarm set point, our condition of 32, so 32 shouldn't trigger it, but 33, there's our alarm. So again, it was pretty easy. It's like it's a 2-minute topic. It's a good question though. We have a lot of good resources, and because there's so many features in here, again, I can't really dive into that. So for example, just to kind of give just a kind of a base level view of things within our alarm log, which looks really basic in the way that I just showed it. We do have the ability to display dynamic values from your PLC using like multi-watch. You could even have a single alarm or several different alarms email out to different email addresses that you've tied within your HMI project. And you may be familiar that some cellular carriers also allow you to email phones, kind of so to speak, by using a phone number and some domain name. So then you can actually send almost text message style notifications to different operators. And this is all included in our software. The only thing you need is maybe an email service that allows you to use the feature called SMTP. And actually, I mean, most email services allow you to do that. There are a couple changes. I know some businesses or some email hosting companies have moved to kind of restrict that for higher level paid plans. Maybe Outlook is one of them. But I know like a bunch of different companies like Yahoo and all those different email companies out there still do support SMTP and like the free base level side. So very cool feature and cool add-ons there. So there's a lot of dynamic capabilities in here that it would just take so long to show. I do have a couple quick demos I'll throw in the end here though, just for fun. So if I go to my desktop, I have 2 quick demos that I'm gonna throw in here. So I will say, because one of the common questions, do we support scripting? We do support scripting. We support scripting both with our proprietary language, which is in our macros here. So if I go ahead and open up our macro manager, I already have some kind of pre-written code just to kind of save some time. So let me go ahead and paste that guy in there. Boom. So this is kind of what it looks like. And let me expand this out a little bit so you can kind of get an overview of how our scripting would look. And again, we can create, so this is just one macro, we can create in a CMT project you can have, or CMTX project, you can have up to 500 different macros running asynchronously, periodically, per calls with buttons. There's a lot of flexibility in doing that. And macros are a very cool tool in which you can do scaling, arithmetic, some more logic-based operations, or as we mentioned, we have 400 plus drivers. One of those 400 plus drivers is a driver called free protocol. So if you have a device out there that's a proprietary device, uses some protocol that you've defined because you've built it, we can communicate to that as well. And that would be using macros by defining specific machine commands. And in addition,
that's really
using
cool.
our free protocol driver. Yeah, it is very cool. It's all these cool things that I don't have time to show, but there's a lot of resources out there in which we do show them. So promise if you check out our YouTube channel, you'll see a lot of cool things that maybe you haven't seen HMIs do before, like ping or reach out to Google Gemini or all these different APIs out there. Very cool stuff. Actually, one of the cool things to mention is that I was going to get into it. We do support SQL. So MySQL, MS SQL, Azure SQL. We don't support PostgreSQL. And that's actually a very common open source SQL platform. However, one of my colleagues the other day did use our JavaScript capabilities to send and move data between this PostgreSQL database and the HMI, and they released a video for that. That's on our channel, our YouTube channel as well. So this is
I saw that, and then I also
Yeah.
have gotten the answer sometimes that like if we don't have a feature or direct support of something, we probably have a macro we've developed for that. right? So the flexibility of the platform also kind of means that there aren't a lot of hard walls as to what we can and can't do. It may not be built in, but that doesn't mean you can't do it, right?
Exactly.
Allie, also, I just want to bring in her feedback here. Being able to email alarms is normally really expensive. That's amazing that it's included.
Huh, that's interesting that it's expensive to me.
Yeah, right?
Again,
Because
it's
you
different
haven't
world,
had
but
that
yeah.
experience. Yeah.
Yeah.
I know Allie's company does a lot of HMI development and support on other platforms that are very expensive.
Mm-hmm.
And then she also has a question. Can you connect more than one PLC to one HMI?
Yes, that's actually a very common question. So obviously we have serial networks. So if you have like RS-485 Modbus RTU network, you can connect various station numbers. So 0 through 255, right? You can reach all the different station numbers you need to in that RS-485 network. That would just be a single driver, and then you would just, what we would do is basically index the station number. I know it doesn't make a lot of sense without me really showing it, but we can do that 0 through 255, all of the available stations on, or unit IDs on like a RS-485 network. Now, if we're talking Ethernet-based connectivity, we can connect to up to 64 different devices in a single project. So that could be, you could add 10 compact logic PLCs to your project, or you can connect to 20 different Ethernet-based drives. So we do have the flexibility for that as well.
Very cool.
That's a great question.
And like you mentioned before, that like the protocol conversion is available in all of the products that use Easybuilder, and there is no limit to how many conversions you can do in the software there. As long as you can connect the whatever it is, right, to the HMI, you can then convert that protocol. Because I've heard that there are some other HMIs out there that do that, but they limit the number that you can do, or in some cases it's only like one conversion that you can do. So that's also very flexible,
slightly
right?
disheartening to hear that it's limited on other. We actually don't put limits in our software, which is great. Or not a lot of hard limits, I will say. Like you may be familiar, like I think Keith's asked a couple times, like, oh, how many users can we add to Easy Access? And then I look in my documentation and I'm like, oh, it doesn't have a limit in there. So I guess probably something super unimaginably big is the limit, but the developers didn't add it because no one can surpass that pretty much. So
yeah, I know on our permission level, so you can also have different users. I just watched a video on this on our YouTube the other day about how to enable permissions for different users. You can have like, I think up to 128 different users with like 12 different permission levels or something. I may be getting those numbers slightly wrong, but the point is, I think it's more than you would like. I don't think anybody's asked for more than that ever. So, and I think in the cases where somebody does ask for more, like we can bump those things up. It's just that there's no reason to go for like, oh, you can have 5,000 different users. Like nobody would want that.
Well, that's the thing too, is I always get is somebody will ask me, hey, can we do this in Easybuilder Pro? Usually the answer is like yes, in like 6 different ways. Let me show you all the different ways to do it. In the case where it's like, let me think about that, it's usually something we can do. Even if it's the most outrageous thing that I've heard, usually we can get there on some level. That's why we can use our HMI to talk to Google Gemini or some really outrageous things that we would never need to do, but we can do them. I guess and I'll just really quickly illustrate. So we talked about protocol conversion. This object is called the data transfer object. All you need to do really as far as protocol conversion is use an object like the data transfer object or a macro and just move data from one device to another. It's the most simplest thing in the world. Like I said, I had no programming background when I came in here, so this is super easy. So we just move data from one device. This is actually a read-only register technically. So move data from one device into another device, and there's our protocol conversion. That's it. That's all we had to do. There's a good 10-second demo for protocol conversion. But as far as doing things that we haven't really seen, this JS demo, this is a JavaScript demo that our factory released when they initially released this feature and then kind of described it in their webinar. So this kind of goes over some things that you wouldn't really do this on an HMI, of course. I mean, maybe there might be an application for drawing things out. I think I've probably come across that before, but it's pretty rare that somebody would ask for that. But we can do things like drawing using Canvas in JavaScript, adding, plotting. We can do plotting. We could do some sort of advanced mathematics with JavaScript, things that we couldn't do in macros. We can do them here. We can also kind of see more graphical animations, I guess, that you can make with JavaScript, or even some sort of almost three-dimensional construct that we have here with JavaScript. We can pull data from APIs. So this, it's hard to see because it's so small, but this pulls the weather to, near a city, actually pretty close to where our office is located, and displays it all in text. This is just pulling it from this kind of weather resource. Here's another one for cities near where our home factory is, over in Taiwan, where it's more structured, a little bit nicer here. But there's a lot of cool use cases and capabilities for JavaScript. JavaScript just really opens the door for so much more advanced thinking. And of course, JavaScript was specifically chosen by our factory just because it's relatively easy language to learn and use. So there's a lot of resources out there for it. And then lastly, I'll just open up this little SQL demo I have here, just because I'd like to show how easy these things are. So we have basically an HMI project. Could be pulling data from a PLC. In this case, it's just pulling it from our HMI's internal memory, or that is simulated on my computer right now. And I have a locally connected, a locally hosted SQL database. All we have to do to really get the data from, for example, if we're doing data logging within this data sampling object, all we have to do to get this data sampling data into SQL is just say sync to database. So once we've actually set up the database parameters in here, you just enable sync to database within your data sampling, and our HMI will reach out to your database and build those tables. I can demonstrate that in real time because it's super easy. So if you have any SQL experience, this will be a breeze just to set up for MySQL, and typically for other SQL platforms as well. I had no experience with like Azure SQL, and I did end up getting that set up after Microsoft very slowly granted me permissions to be able to create a database. I did have that set up. So here I just have this basically data logging going on. It looks like once every second, and we just have some sort of random value I'm just entering in there just for testing. We can auto sync, but in this case, I'm just going to manually sync it. And if I just jump over here into our, so I didn't previously have any tables other than the store table in here. And if I just refresh, now I have a whole data table. So if I go ahead and click on this guy here, yeah, we should be able to see all of our latest data recorded in our database. So very, very easy thing to do is to sync data to SQL database. So really we do, it is good to emphasize the easy part of Easybuilder Pro. There's a lot of things in here that are pretty easy. If anybody
it's both
has any
easy and
questions.
pro at the same time, which is not always the case, right? It's usually either easy or pro.
No, that's a very good point. Yeah, because I mean, even in sections like say we were going to do some manual queries, we have your basic, I don't need to know too much about SQL interface here, which this already, it may look complex to some, but if you're familiar with SQL and you watch a 10-minute video that I or somebody else here made, you'll put it together pretty quick. But say you have no reference, no understanding of SQL. This is very easy to use, but if you are on the more advanced side and you feel comfortable with it, we do have in certain objects like an advanced mode here where you can go and switch into this advanced mode and then go in here and, for example, write your own SQL queries. So the former will give you some pre-built SQL queries, very basic stuff, and then this one will actually allow you to write your own SQL queries. So there's a lot of objects that kind of provide that more advanced functionality in there. Just not always used, but when they are, it's used heavily in a project. That's what I would say.
Very cool. Thank you. I muted myself here because, as I mentioned before we started recording, my dog was happily sleeping. And then I was hoping she wouldn't need to use the bathroom, but now's the time. So she's told me it's time to shut this down. So usually towards the end of these, I just want to encourage the audience to talk to each other, make friends. If you're here, so are other people that also care about HMI development. You can get value out of being here, even if you want nothing to do with us again, or Weintek for that matter. These are some great folks here in the comments that have showed up, and they are generally a very welcoming and helpful community. Are willing to share what they're working on and give you guys, give each other a hand and that sort of thing. So I want to say that. And then connect with these guys, Keith and Brendan. They're not always on LinkedIn like I am. And they're not going to be able to answer your tech support questions through LinkedIn DMs, but they are here putting out content. It's thoughtful content. It's from them. It's not, our marketing department putting words in their mouth or anything like that. And they're very genuine people. They love what they do. They'd love to hear from you. And so connect with all of us. Regarding where to go, if you want, go to weintekusa.com, WEINTEK, USA.com, as you can see if you're watching the screen under Keith's name right there. And there's a link to our forum there, which has a lot of sample projects, the free download for Easybuilder Pro, a lot of tutorials, and then our YouTube channel as well. So the factory has their own YouTube channel and forum as well. So there will be, there is a weintek.com website, which is coming from Taiwan. It's usually things will kind of get released first there because they're doing the R&D and development. And then we kind of, put together our own content here for the US audience, for our channel, the products that we're supporting over here. So I'd say definitely, if you're outside the US, then go to weintek.com and they have their own forum. You can download Easybuilder Pro there as well. But if you're from North America, in the US market, then Weintek USA is your resource. Our team is up in the Seattle area, and we have great distributors all over the country as well that have demos and are able to technically support the product. So we have a button on our website that says locate your distributor. It's not currently an active page like where it will list all of the distributors. We'll get you in touch with the right distributors in your area. You can also Google for our product and you'll find some that are selling online, and I'm sure more and more of them will be moving into online sales as well. But it should be fairly easy to get a hold of us. And if you don't get a hold of one of our distributors, you can certainly talk with us and, we can take care of you. The way that we do technical support. So another thing that, differentiates us is we do free technical support, but it's done through the support forum so that we can, manage that. And then also if we're answering somebody's question one-on-one over the phone, then we have to answer that question again 1,000 times when another person calls in with that same question. Whereas if we answer your questions on the forum, then that creates a body of knowledge that next time somebody has that question, they can search for it first before they spend the time calling or, emailing or whatever. So we think that's the modern way to do tech support, as well as just have the community be able to add resources and help each other out. The forum is primarily answered by our engineers, though. So don't think that because it says the word forum that it's just other users answering your questions. We do monitor the forum, answer those questions proactively. And then we have a great community of people that are developing with HMIs, with our HMIs, with Easybuilder Pro. So if you're somebody that's doing advanced development, you're developing your own applications or libraries or scripts or any of that, and you want to, hang out with other people that are doing that and want to share like in-depth content with each other, tips and tricks. We do have a user group on LinkedIn as well. That's kind of for the heavy users to be able to support each other and give each other ideas and that sort of thing. So there's plenty of different ways to get involved, from beginner to, full on developers. And yeah, Keith, do you want to add anything to that in terms of where people should go or how they should follow up with us if they're interested? And you're muted.
Had a barking dog a second ago. Sorry about that. Yeah. No, I think you hit the key points. So, we kind of have a modern approach to support. I'm an old controls engineer, and the idea of having a dial-in number where you may or may not get the right person, and whether then you're going to have to be upgraded or I may have to pay for support or those kind of things is kind of an antiquated methodology for support. And so we've got a multifaceted kind of modern approach that hey, there's Frank.
Hey, Frank.
that allows us to, you mentioned the forum. We've got an extensive YouTube channel. Our team of engineers, there's constantly putting out new video content, which is primarily technical content. And when you couple that with the forum and then, we've got the ability to get you help from an engineer if you need it. So yeah, I mean, once people get used to how we approach it, every one of them comes back to me and goes, yeah, this works really well. Just have to change your paradigm a little bit.
Yeah. And I've heard it, especially from, younger folks that I've been talking to lately. They're like, oh, really? That's so great. You've got all that stuff on YouTube. Like, I don't have to call and talk
I don't
to
have
somebody.
to call somebody, right?
Yeah. So I think there's different, kind of generational aspects to this as well. How people want to talk to people, how they want to be approached, how they want to buy, how they want to do their own research ahead of figuring out. So if you want us to walk you through the catalog and figure out what unit is going to be best for your application, we or our distributors can absolutely do that. Or if you're the kind of person that wants to just figure it out on your own and never talk to a person, you can do that with us as well. The data sheets are all free to download on our website, models, everything like that. So there shouldn't be anything gate kept from you aside from maybe an email login into our forum to get you started. So please go check it out. Follow up with more questions. If you watch this later, feel free to drop your questions in the comments here, and we'll take a look at this and try to address them. Maybe pop some links to some of our YouTube videos, things like that as additional resources. But I appreciate you all being here. Those of you that interacted and asked questions and made some comments, we really appreciate it. We do this because it's fun and we get to learn together. Not so that we can talk to people through a screen and try to sell them something. So, and Keith and Brendan, thank you so much for being good sports for the Automation Ladies style demo, which I know is not exactly what everybody's used to, but it's how we like doing things.
No,
thanks,
cool.
Kyle. He says, thanks for y'all. Love it. Thanks for y'all's time. I enjoyed the video. I'll reach out via LinkedIn. I'll have to find out where you're located, Kyle.
Thank you.
I'm practicing my use of y'all now that I'm back in Texas. I think I got to get on the wagon and I resisted it for so long. I moved here from Europe when I was a kid and I was like, I'm never going to say that. Anyway, thanks everybody. Have a great rest of your afternoon. Have a great week. We'll be back with a live demo in 2 weeks on Thursday, same time, 3 p.m. And then if you're going to automate, and if you should, by the way, if you can make it, please come see us. We'd love to meet you in person. Bye.
Absolutely. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.